slept with hubby's friends because I wanted to explore. His reaction was never expected.
I would never forget the day my life went downhill within a blink of an eye. I thought I was having fun and exploring what I had not done before. All I wanted was to experience and venture into new things that my husband was not offering. You know, sometimes it's really bad to get married when your heart still wants to explore other things. It's like getting married when you are not even ready for commitment. My husband was very boring and always busy with work to a point that he didn't even try to make time for me. As his wife, it would always be either his work or gone to business trips that take months for him to come back. So I am young and still beautiful, so I thought, why not try what I had been missing out ever since I got married? Well, my work history is not too good, so some might know what I mean when I say some old habits die hard. If I knew better, I would have done things a different way, or I wouldn't have done anything that would jeopardize my marriage and my image. How does one deal with the most cruel and humiliating act that my husband had taken because I had done him wrong? How do I recover from this? Let me take you to what happened. Please do not judge me but advise me. So I, female, 33, and my husband Dominic, a male, 40, met at a cafe that I was working at in LA, while I was also working at a strip club during weekends and holidays. That time I was only 22, going to be turning 23 in a couple of months to come. He had come for some business meeting, if I was not mistaken, because he once told me that when we met, he was still trying to grow his architectural business since he had worked as a building planner and designer. The day we met, it wasn't a very pleasant day for me because I was not working at a cafe because I liked to. But it was the circumstances that I was facing at home. You know, since I was the only girl child who got a chance to further her studies. I was raised by a single mother who is also dealing with her own drinking problems, so I had to become an adult to her and my younger siblings. I worked at a cafe to raise more funds to pay for my tuition fees and make amends to take care of my younger siblings. So I didn't get a chance to enjoy my youth and do what my age mates did. One day he asked for my numbers, telling me that he loved my service, so he would like to get my work schedule so he would know if I was working or not. Because there was this time one of my colleagues told me that Dominic had come to the cafe when I was not at work and asked to be served by me, so when he was told that I was not working, he told them that he would go to another cafe for his coffee until I was back. Mind you, that time I was in the middle of my exams, so I had to focus on my books. He was such a charmer and a smooth talker. As time passed, I went out with him. He was a very smart man and business-minded, but what I had noticed about him was that he didn't take any *T from anyone and find out later that he was actually a Capricorn. He was smart, business-minded, funny and kind, but he had a very low temper and he was very strict. He always wanted perfection. I had thought they were playing when they say never fool a Capricorn because their revenge is always wrath and cruel. I learnt that the hard way. One thing that I can advise people on is that if you are dating a Capricorn while you are a Gemini, just prepared that your relationship will always have very serious ups and downs because a Gemini has their own short temper and Capricorn also, but the Capricorn always wants to have an upper hand. They lead, so as the Gemini you will have to understand that and thread carefully. Because once you do them wrong, you would have poured gas or paraffin on an already blazing devil's fire. Ask me, I know how it's like to date and even get married to a Capricorn while you are a Gemini. So I am talking from experience. Anyway, Dominic was really romantic and loving. He knew how to treat a woman like a queen. So we continued going out. He showered me with so much love and gifts. The way I was falling harder and harder for him every day, I eventually found myself like I was possessive over him or obsessed, I don't know. I would get angry if he was not answering my calls, or he would come to have one of his meetings in a cafe with a woman. Was I being obsessive or possessive over the poor guy? Time passed and we started dating. He had confessed his feelings for me, but I kept turning him down and preferred having only a friendship relationship because I had thought I was not the type of girl he would want to be with. 2. I was afraid of telling him about my job as a stripper and sex worker to get money. I just couldn't tell him what I was doing for a living except for the fact that I was working at a cafe, which he knew since we first met there. I was ashamed of my second job, and on the other hand I had fallen for the guy, but I was doubting myself. After a year of dating, he proposed and we got married. My mother was also okay. Dominic had gotten her some help to take out the addiction of alcohol she had, and he was taking good care of my siblings. I wouldn't have to ask for me. I mean, he was doing enough for me and my family, but one thing I knew was that I didn't know if I loved him deeply or I just loved the benefits he was coming with. I had graduated before we got married and the guy wanted to start building his own empire, meaning he wanted to have children that would take over when he either retires or passes on. Time passed and I had told myself that I would leave the strip club and at least focus on my new venture business that my husband had helped me start. I had started a marketing business, which was advertising or promoting his architectural business, which grew over time from promoting my husband's business to promoting for bigger companies. I loved the change that was happening, being independent, having to enjoy my own hard-earned money while I knew that my family was well taken care of. It was a breath of fresh air, most especially when you know that your mother had become the person who had always prayed for her to be. As my business was doing well, I had quitted being a stripper and a sex worker, well I quitted when I had started dating Dominic for a couple of months. His love, attention and affection couldn't let me continue with the job, so I had to change for him, well not for him only but also for myself to grow. So when I was working at a strip club, I had gotten regular clients who would just call me to ask for my service in exchange for money, of course. They were very helpful during that time, but when I got into a relationship with Dominic and I had seen that it was getting serious, I had to cut all the deals we had off and delete their contacts because I didn't want to put my first serious relationship in jeopardy. About a couple of months later, I started getting sick so much to a point that even my husband got worried and decided to take me to the doctor because I was losing weight and had no energy to even satisfy my husband's needs as I had to. That sickness was stressing me out because I had thought of the worst, like my husband would cheat or find someone else better, who would fulfill his desires and bear him a child, or he would divorce me because he wouldn't be able to keep up with a sick person. But he stayed around and even took some months off work to take care of me. I would appreciate that till I take my last breath. So the doctor had admitted me, saying my blood level was too low, I was not eating well enough, which was too risky especially in the condition I was in. My husband was confused about the condition the doctor was talking about, so was I. So he furthered his explanation by telling us that we were pregnant. Well, I was pregnant. I was happy, but my husband was happier and I loved seeing him so happy. Since then he started being fussy over me, making sure I was eating well and I was taking care of myself, but he was overdoing it, though I couldn't complain. I had a good support system that my husband was giving me. Not to mention the love he showered me with, it was breathtakingly refreshing. I don't really know what had gone wrong with him like that. I guess it was selfishness and greed, I don't know. As much as our intimate moments were on the level that satisfied me, but he loved me, and I should have embraced that. And what did I do? I betrayed him in a most painful and cruel way. A year later I had given birth to a very cute and beautiful baby girl. Was I not happy? I was ecstatic, but I couldn't say the same with my husband because he had wanted and hoped for a boy. So a year after our daughter was born, he became distant, going to work earlier than he used to and coming back late. Our marriage was no longer the same and it was breaking my heart because he was very much in love and supportive during the whole pregnancy journey, but when the child was born, he stuck around for 6 months, then he started his acts. The more Dominic was acting offish and absent to our daughter and I, the more I kept having thoughts about him. He was no longer the loving, romantic, kind and caring husband that I had married. Wasn't he the one who had been pestering me about starting our own family, building his empire and all that? But when the baby was born, he changed. And he changed for the worst. Mind you, the child looked so much like him, but that didn't give him any motivation to show some love and kindness to his child. He was treating me like I was cheating on him or I had cheated on him. Time passed and I saw no change in Dominic's behavior, but it was getting worse each day. I couldn't take it anymore, it was tearing me apart because I didn't know what his problem was, and if I tried to communicate with him about it, he would say there was no problem and he loved our daughter. His words were saying something else while his actions were saying another thing, so what he was saying versus what he was doing was not colliding even a little. So I took my child to my mother's house. I was glad that my mother had fully recovered from her alcohol addiction and he had become a mother we had always wished for, to me and my siblings, and he showed so much love to my daughter, which was another thing I was grateful for. So I left my baby girl for a full 2 months, telling my mother that I wanted to fix my marriage with Dominic and plead with him to accept that he had a chance to have a child even if she wasn't what he had expected, but she was still his child, his blood and semen. During my efforts to fix our marriage, the man of the house didn't seem to change. Yes, he would tell me that he loved me, but what about our daughter? What he was doing to me and our daughter was slowly finishing the love I had for him. What is love exactly if you are not showing it, but keep saying it like it's a chorus in your favorite song? How can a person say they love you, but they can't love their own seed? It was really confusing and heartbreaking because if I were to choose between my husband and our daughter, I would definitely choose our daughter because his love that he said he had for us was not enough. In fact, it was just lousy and useless words because his actions were saying a different thing. One day he had invited his friends for a bray to celebrate his success in getting a client in Africa. I was proud of him and his achievements. I won't lie, he had worked very hard to get that contract and he eventually did through his hard work and dedication. So as the good wife that I was, I helped him prepare for the bray that he was hosting. He had asked me to help him because he first wanted to celebrate with his friends, then invite the family later on when the contract was confirmed and signed. I helped him with everything that he needed. My daughter was still with my mother at that time. So when his friends came, I didn't know all of his friends, I only knew a few. I got the shock of my life. 2 of his friends were my clients back then when I was working at a strip club. One of them used to ask me for my intimate service and the other would come to the strip club for the dance only. I just couldn't believe how small the world was and I got uncomfortable at the fact that they might tell my husband about my past with them. Another thing I wouldn't know is that they were my husband's friends because they were not at our wedding celebration. Worst part was that both of them had asked for my service 2 weeks before my wedding with Dominic. They had asked me on different days and I wouldn't have guessed that they were somehow friends. Yes, I am not proud of what I had done to my husband because he had shown me nothing but true love and the guys had promised to give me good money and they wanted a good service before they would go on a business trip. That was what they told me. If I knew that they were my husband's friends, I wouldn't have agreed to commit adultery 2 weeks before I got married. Throughout the whole celebration I was so uncomfortable. The lusting eyes that the guys were giving made me more uncomfortable. I didn't know how these guys would act when they got drunk because they were drinking like it was their last time or what they would tell Dominic. You know how some guys are. And according to what I had seen, it looked like the whole squad knew that the 2 guys were womanizers. The other one liked going to strip clubs while the other one loved sex. So it was scary. I was not even myself, but luckily no one noticed. About a month later, I received a call from Tom, one of Dominic's friends, the one who loved sex. I was surprised because he hadn't called me ever since the day we last saw each other before my wedding. He asked me to meet him at a certain hotel for a quick one, of which I bluntly refused and reminded him that I was no longer into that life and I was happily married. I said that to get him off my back and hoped that maybe he would get the message even though I was not really happy. It had been quite some time since things had been tense in my matrimonial house. My husband was acting fishy, like there was something he was hiding from me. At first I had thought it was work pressure, but things got worse. He was suddenly moody, his sex drive was no longer the same. As much as he acted like he didn't love our daughter or even try to play with her, that was a small thing compared to how he was acting towards me alone. So Tom just laughed at me when I told him that I was happily married and he told me that if I was happily married, I would have acted like a happy person when they had come to Dominic's celebratory bray. I first didn't understand what he was trying to imply, but I somehow remembered that he was the only client that knew me at my happiest or when I was pretending to be happy. He told me to know my worth and if the battle that I was trying to win with Dominic was worth it and how long would I keep fighting for something and someone who couldn't even steal a glance at me when they were in my house. What he was saying was true, but I couldn't give him that satisfaction just because my husband had changed on me. I still had faith that he would be back to be the person he was when we first started dating. My marketing company on the other side was doing well. It was the best distraction I had. Time passed, I decided to start going out, to live a little, you know. I had never got time to all that and enjoy my money because I had to think of the situation that I was facing at home. So I started by going to the mall to do some shopping, hoping that it would cheer me up, just like all the girls who say shopping was a great therapy, but for me it wasn't, I won't lie. My husband knew that I was the lover of affection and intimacy, but the way he was acting made me somehow feel frustrated and in so much desire for intimacy. Though I didn't want to do that to my husband because it was going to jeopardize my marriage, I couldn't hold myself anymore to the point that I would sometimes help myself. So when I went shopping, I bought a lot of lingerie, hoping that they would bring at least a small spark to my husband's eyes when he sees me wearing a sexy number. So when I got home, I prepared his favorite dish. Luckily, I had gotten my daughter a nanny because of work, and I was kind of tired of burdening my mother with my problems. My husband came back earlier than expected that day. The nanny and my daughter were at my mother's house, so I tried acting like a good wife and welcomed my husband with a kiss and asked him to go take a quick shower because we needed to talk. Luckily, he complied and did as instructed. While I was left to finish up everything, I made sure to wear something sexy that would make him want to eat me in an instant. When he came back from taking a shower, he came down the stairs and asked what the occasion was and where I was going, since I was wearing a dress that he had not seen before. I told him that I had wanted to spend quality time with him and tried addressing the issue that we were facing in our marriage. But the guy just dismissed my concerns and changed the topic. I asked him to at least notice me as his wife. I then tried seducing him, but he was not having it. He complained about being tired, and what surprised me that day was that he asked where Chrissy, our daughter, was. I knew he didn't ask that because he wanted to ask, but it was because he wanted to dismiss what I was trying to do and address it with him. So I told him that our daughter was at my mother's house. He just took the car keys and told me that a child shouldn't be separated from their mother because that would break the connection and the bond we had, so he was going to fetch her. I didn't really understand the sudden love he had for our daughter, but somehow my heart was happy and at ease to see him considering our daughter's feelings. I had hopes that maybe we would get through everything, but who was I fooling? He left me there with a lingerie on. He didn't even try to at least compliment or show me some affection. He just remembered that he had a daughter that he had been absent with for a year. My heart was broken and I was so thirsty and hungry for some intimacy, so I found myself calling Tom with the hope that he was available. Luckily, he had invited me to their private party because I had told him that I was bored and I needed some company. I didn't even waste any time. I just changed only the dress that I was wearing, then went to the location that Tom had sent. I didn't care if my husband would come back home and not find me. All I was thinking about was the salt and desire for affection that I had been craving for. When I got there, Tom welcomed me and introduced me as his fun girl, which came as a huge shock to me because I didn't remember forming any fun relationship with Tom, but I dismissed that, but maybe we did have a fun relationship which happened a long time ago. So the night went on, and at that party, I noticed a few of Dominic's friends. Someone suggested that we all play spin the bottle, where one would either kiss the person the bottle would be pointed to or you would have a shot of vodka. That game was fun and all. I had kissed 3 of Dominic's friends including Tom. As the game was getting heated, someone changed it and told us to play truth or dare. I tried containing myself by choosing truths, but Tom asked if I was truly happy and sexually satisfied in my marriage. That question caught me by surprise because I didn't know how to answer, and I couldn't lie because they would see that I was lying. I was getting uncomfortable, so I changed the answer I had given them and chose dare. Tom then dared me to go to one of the rooms in the house with a guy called Kenny for 15 minutes. He looked like he had been craving for me the whole night. I was resistant at first because I didn't know what I was supposed to do in that room, but I eventually went with the guy. When we got there, the guy started touching me. Mind you, I was also tipsy, so the alcohol was playing its role on my body, so it reacted to his touch and smooth words he kept saying. Within a blink of an eye, I found myself going down with the guy. My mind had flushed down any thoughts of my marriage problems and my husband. I was enjoying the moment. My mind took me back to where and who I was before getting married and having a whole family. Not knowing that the room we were in actually had cameras, I was so caught up in a moment to a point that I didn't notice anything, plus the alcohol was doing its work. The game went on until late, and the real fun started when everyone was dancing. I was really sloshed to a point that I found myself dancing like a stripper on top of the table. I did the dance for 3 of the guys, who included Tom, Kenny, and the one that used to come to the strip club for my dance. I was letting loose and cared less. Little did I know that they were actually my husband's friends. Well, I knew the 2, but I didn't know about Kenny. So as I was busy dancing, I told the guys to follow me to the private room. My stripping habits had come back on full mode, and we were all drunk, so I commanded them to follow me to the room and they complied. When we got there, we started our little party. I danced for them and seduced them to a point that Tom and Kenny started touching me, and boom, we were having a threesome. I was enjoying the way that they were touching me and making me feel good. I don't remember where the other guy had gone and I didn't care, so I continued with the fun I was having with two of these guys. We did a lot the previous night. We were all sloshed to a point that I couldn't remember everything that had taken place in the private room, though I remembered bits of what had happened. I woke up in the morning with a very serious hangover headache. When I looked at myself, I saw that I was not wearing anything. My heart started beating thinking of the worst and thinking of how stupid I was for putting my marriage in jeopardy. I had committed adultery, something I had vowed to myself to never do again. I was so scared, thoughts were racing in my head. I couldn't help but feel guilty of what I had done, and there was no undoing it. As I was busy panicking, Tom came into the room with a cup of coffee and painkillers to kill the hangover headache. As much as I wanted to appreciate his kind gesture, my heart and my mind didn't allow me to. It was on its own dimension and a very dark one. I just couldn't stay there anymore, so I only took the painkillers and drank them before rushing home. When I got home, I found my husband busy with his drawings. He was doing a very good job and I was really proud of his accomplishments. I greeted him and he told me that Chrissy was sleeping, in a very cold tone. I knew I was in deep *T because I didn't even notify him about my sudden departure. It was something that came to mind at the last minute. I tried apologizing to him for leaving the house and not tell him where I was going. Instead of saying that maybe it's okay, he just gave me an answer. He was as cold as ice. Weeks later, I had been living in fear and thought that my husband was seeing through me what I had done. I felt like the abomination that I had done was written all over me, and it didn't help with the guilt I was feeling. During those weeks, my husband suddenly decided that he was moving out of the house. When I asked him why he was doing that, he told me that it was for the best, not only for him but for myself also. I didn't understand his lame and lousy excuse, so I fought with him about moving. After the whole begging and throwing tantrums that I did thinking he would change his mind, the guy continued with his plans and moved out of the house. I knew there and then that my marriage was hanging on a very high and dangerous cliff. You know, when you get that feeling that tells you that everything you had worked hard for was about to go south instead of north side. That was what I had felt, and I couldn't even blame anyone for it. About a week after he had moved out, a delivery guy had come to the house, stating that he had come to deliver the parcel. When I asked who had sent it, he told me what all other delivery guys usually say, "I don't know ma'am, I am just a delivery guy." My conscience told me that maybe it was something from my business clients. Little did I know that it was actually divorce papers and another paper that stated that Dominic was taking full custody of Chrissy. I thought I was going crazy, like my mind was about to burst like a bomb. I couldn't believe why Dominic would just decide to send me such things. Why couldn't he sit down with me and talk like married and matured parents? But he went there and filed for a divorce plus full custody of the very same daughter he had neglected for a year. I couldn't let him win just like that. If he wanted to go, he should have told me, but not take my daughter. I called our family and asked for an urgent meeting with Dominic because everything was going through our lawyers. Luckily, the week didn't end and the lawyer had confirmed that we would meet in the next 3 days. So when we got there, I asked Dominic why he was divorcing me and why he wanted to take full custody of my child. The answers he gave me were more than enough to make me depressed and think of the worst of myself. He told me that he knew that I had cheated on him with 3 of his friends, and I didn't start there because he also found out that I had cheated again 2 weeks before our wedding day. He furthered by saying that he knew about my past job and that the cafe job was just a front job for me. I didn't understand where he had taken all that information. My mind had thought that maybe Tom might have told him. But I found out that he didn't. Dominic had found all of that by himself, and his trusted friends had told me that I had gone to the private party that they had hosted and Tom introduced me as his fun girl. I had no comeback when he said, so I opted to just humble myself and apologize, hoping that we would maybe try and work things out for the sake of our daughter. He was not having. He was so furious even the veins were coming through his temple. I had seen Dominic angry, but the way he was angry that time made me scared and regret the things I had done. I know I should have been honest with him from the get-go, but I decided to keep everything to myself, and when the old me got unleashed I couldn't control it. And forgot that I was no longer under the pressure of my family and I was a married woman. But what did I do? I broke the vows that I had made in front of our families, friends and God, and there was nothing I could have done to save my marriage. I tried pleading with Dominic to at least have mercy and not take my daughter away, but the guy just told us that he was done talking and the call he would like to receive would be the call that tells him that I had signed the papers. I couldn't let him win, I couldn't go back to being the person I was before I found Dominic, so I tried fighting for what was mine. During my efforts of trying to fight for my daughter, Dominic did the worst thing possible. He had gone to one of the gossip journalists and told them that he had taken his company out of my marketing company, he would no longer use my company for his business because I was untrustworthy and an unreliable person. He furthered his statement by saying that my marketing company is just a front to get more clients, but my real self was a body seller, a stripper, and a mother to the daughter that I would always take to my mother's place so I would have time to satisfy my clients. I couldn't believe that the guy I had loved and fought so hard for him to notice me as his wife would just go to journalists and tarnish my name just like that. After that I lost so many clients to a point that I didn't even know how and where I would start and pick up the pieces that the person I had once loved had scattered. You know when a person says they were drowning in deep muddy waters. I was that person, I was drowning in muddy water and I couldn't swim. I resorted to finding closure in alcohol, I became what my mother was. At that time I understood why my mother was an alcoholic, my life was down and out. I had lost the only person who showered me with love and care and gave me a very beautiful daughter. Now I had lost that daughter plus something that was so dear in my heart, my company. I was really depressed and wished to just go far away where there were no troubles and sorrows. 6 months later, my mother told me to stop having a pity party because it will not bring back the things that I had lost including my daughter but instead it would take me straight to the morgue and when that happens, I would not be able to fight nor see my daughter ever again. Those words made me think again about life, so I took the money that I had saved from my company and the one I had got when I got divorced and used it to fix myself. I went to the rehabilitation center for 6 months, while attending AA meetings when I was inside. By the time I came out, I was a whole new person, I had discovered what my worth was and what I wanted. I started by asking for at least a joint custody of my daughter which I got by the grace of God. I made peace with Dominic even though he was still disappointed in me but we became civil parents for the sake of our daughter. I then started another social media marketing and a non-profit organization for women who were once in my shoes. I am happy with the changes in my life, everything that happened didn't only break me but they groomed me to be the better version of myself and be able to help others who are like me. As I have mentioned that I do not need or condone any judgment, I am still ashamed of my past, please give me guides on how I should have done things. If there is anyone who was once like me, how did you come out of the situation without losing your life partner?
You know, sometimes we do things just because of lust or greed or I don't know how I can put this, but we ladies sometimes do things without thinking, and when karma visits us, we start regretting and end up asking yourself what is wrong with you, or what if I did this or that? And if I didn't listen to, I wouldn't have gotten myself into this mess. A lot of things start ringing in your mind, and reality kicks in like an unexpected tornado. To tell the truth, I regret and will always regret what I did, because it showed how weak and not being able to avoid temptation I was. I miss him so much, but there is actually nothing I could do. I messed up, and it is not anyone's fault but mine. I had brought this upon myself. My stupid actions cost me my future love. I didn't know, okay. I got tempted only to find out that I got tempted in the wrong place and at the wrong time. Now I'm suffering the consequences. Please tell me what I should do. So my story goes like this. I, female 25, met this handsome man at a grocery store. I was going with my little sister, 13, trying to buy a few things for the family since it was almost time for Christmas. So this handsome man came into the food aisle that we were in. I think he was lost because he asked where he could get packs of M&Ms. I directed him to another store that sold bulk packs because he wanted bulk packs. My loud sister then told the guy that he looked cute. How embarrassing. Sigh. To my surprise, the guy smiled at her and appreciated the compliment. Few days later, I found out that he was actually staying around the neighborhood. I asked myself how come he didn't know where the M&M's bulk packs were sold if he was around. He liked morning jogs, so I saw him when I was taking out the trash. He saw me and greeted. I had thought he had forgotten about me, but surprisingly he didn't. So we had small chats and exchanged our names. He told me that he was Kevin, male 26. Our good conversation was cut off, but some old man, who I later figured out was his stepdad. So the man interrupted our conversation to tell him that he should get inside. I mean, I asked myself, how old was Kevin to be told to get inside like he was a small boy? I don't know what tempted me to this old man, but whatever it was, I regret it so much. Before Kevin went inside his house, he asked for my numbers and told me that he would like to have friends around the neighborhood, since he had recently moved this side. I gladly gave him that, and that was how we started getting along. I remember when he used to visit me at home, my parents welcomed him with warm hands. We got along pretty well. He had a very charming smile, you know. I admired everything about him. You know when they say God took his precious time to make the most perfect human being? That was what he did with Kevin. His mother and father surely took time and chose which semens to use in order to give birth to a perfect man like him. As we got along, his stepdad would sometimes shout at him for spending time with me. I really don't know why. He was acting like I was the bad girl that any parent wouldn't be near their children. As much as I am an extrovert, I loved and still love going out and having fun. I was not a rebellious child that disappointed his parents. I was working at one of the good accounting firms in New York, name withheld for personal reasons, so I was not a disappointing child. So I would take Kevin out for some drinks as friends since he was not from Aurora, so I decided to show him our small town. I heard that he was visiting his mother since she was married to the stepdad, while he lived in Jersey City with his siblings only. Our friendship was a bliss, but his stepdad didn't like it, but we continued being friends despite his disapproval. One day I went to work, and to my surprise, Kevin's stepdad came to the office with regards to his business that was under rocks. He needed a tax manager to foresee where his business's tax money was going, because in his own knowledge, he was paying his business tax. So my boss transferred him to me, and I managed to find what was wrong with his business accounts. So I found out that his accountant was actually stealing money from his business, and he was not paying taxes as he was supposed to. That time I didn't even tell Kevin that his stepdad had come to my workplace, because I respected my work ethics and protocols. So everything that I was discussing with my clients were confidential, and I didn't think he knew that his stepdad was going through a tax crisis. I once suspected a lot of pretense between them, but he was tolerating him for his mom's sake. And Kevin loved his mom to a point that he would rather invade a space of someone who didn't like him, so he would see his mom. The relationship he had with his mom was really beautiful. His mom was a housewife. So you understand why Kevin loved visiting her. Because I am sure if she was working, he was not going to visit because his stepdad was home most of the time. I think that stepdad was into something illegal, I don't know what, but he was doing something doggy. He looked a bit off and intimidating. One would think he was a serial killer. I once asked Kevin how he was putting up with his stepdad and how his mom agreed to marry a scary man like that. To my surprise, my father was a friend of the stepdad. I found out that during a Thanksgiving holiday, Mom had invited them. I didn't like the way he was looking at me. I had noticed him looking at me like I was his favorite candy at a candy store. He was undressing me with his eyes, and that made me really uncomfortable. But I didn't tell that to anyone or took it seriously because he was old and my father's friend, and I couldn't just say something that I had no proof of right. The stepdad kept coming to my workplace, claiming he needed help with his business books. I didn't understand why because he had employees in his business, unless he was doing something illegal. But nonetheless, even those who do illegal businesses have employees, right? So it puzzled me to see him more often at my workplace, worst part, asking for my help, while he acts like a crazy bull when he is at his house, or when he sees me with Kevin, he would just become, I don't know how I can put, maybe a bear that is high on cocaine, trying to explain the stepdad's crazy act whenever I'm with Kevin. Time passed. Kevin kept coming to visit his mother, and we would spend a lot of time together. One would think we were dating, but we were not, because my mother once asked me what was going on between Kevin and I because she had seen the way he looked at me and the way he suddenly loved visiting his mom. I didn't pay any attention to that, because it didn't come to me that his visitations had become more regular than before. To tell the truth, the more I spent time with Kevin, the more I fell for him. I don't know if it was just a meaningless crush, or it was the love that I felt, but I was feeling something for him. I wanted and longed for more than a friendship, you know. But I would just tell myself that I was crazy if I thought I would get a perfect guy like Kevin. Surely he had a perfect girlfriend like him in Jersey City, maybe a model, I don't know. I tried showing him hints that I wanted more than a friendship, but he would either act dumb or he would bluntly ignore any action I did. I know it was kind of sluttish of me to try and show the guy that I wanted him, but I couldn't hold myself. His lips were so appetizing to a point that sometimes I would just stare at them when he talks and imagine myself tasting them someday. It's crazy, right? Funny thing that had happened was that whenever I spent time with Kevin, he would tell me that one day he would make me his lover. He was a smooth and sweet talker, you know. Yes, I felt the same way as him, but I never thought he was serious about what he said. So I took it as a joke. He would always remind me that one day he was going to fetch me, so I would move with him to Jersey City, and that I was his future lover. But he wanted to fix something first. I took all that as a joke and thought he was just saying everything, because he wanted me to feel special. Not knowing that he was actually confessing his true feelings, you know, I was pretty much in denial because there was no way a guy like Kevin would see a future with just a simple girl like me. I was just a simple and ordinary girl from Aurora who had a good job but was not lucky when it came to relationships. I was somehow self-doubting myself because of my past. Weeks turned to months. Kevin had stopped visiting. I thought he was busy with his girlfriend from Jersey City. That thought made me kind of jealous because I liked the guy, but he never noticed me. And another thing I missed being in his presence. During those months, I tried calling him, but his phone was not going through, which made me worried, and I felt lonely because he had been the best friend I had never had. But all of a sudden, he decided to ghost me. I stayed with the guilt that maybe he saw my flirtatious acts and decided to stop being friends with me. But I would ask myself why he didn't tell that to me in the face, rather than to just ghost me. I was angry at him for acting like a coward. I was kind of disappointed at him for the coward act he did. Little did I know that his very own stepdad was the actual reason why Kevin was no longer visiting Aurora. It saddened me when I found out that, and worst part, I didn't know where Kevin stayed. I just knew that he stayed in Jersey City, and that was all. The stepdad once approached me and asked me to help him with some papers at his house. At first, I bluntly refused because the man was scaring me, and why the sudden change of heart. I mean, he never even greeted me, even if we bumped into each other in shops. Then he came to my house asking me to help him with papers. It was just hard buying that. It took him to ask my father that he needed my help with his papers since I was working at an accounting firm. Obviously, my father would ask me to help him on his behalf. I tried explaining to my father how scared I was of the guy, but decided to talk me out of it, so I eventually agreed. I mean, most of the time I was doing nothing at home. I was bored. Kevin was no longer visiting, and he had ghosted me all of a sudden. It did sting to me that he had changed on me right when I had thought I had found a friend. As much as I loved going out a lot, but I didn't have any friends, and Kevin became the friend I had never had. I hated him for going AWOL on me like that. I was also disappointed at myself for pushing the guy away because of my slutty actions. Days passed. I went to the stepdad's house, and to my surprise, Kevin's mother was not around, which made me kind of uncomfortable. I asked him where his wife was, and he told me that she had gone to Jersey City to visit her children. I asked myself, why would a woman leave his children behind and go live in another city? I mean, if I had children, I would never leave them all alone and move to another city. Some mothers' parents would rather leave their children behind so they would live with their man. I just didn't understand it. So Mr. Spencer, stepdad, showed me the papers he wanted me to help him with. We went through them together. I showed him where things were wrong, like the transactions of his business and what made the business delay paying their taxes. There were a lot of loopholes in his business's spreadsheets, but I managed to help and explain to him what was happening. He then tried to ask me to come and work for him, but I politely refused. I mean, I loved my job and I didn't see myself working for any other company. To my surprise, the stepdad was not all bad as I had thought or seen him. He was actually cool and friendly. So time passed. I kept going to his house, to help him, of course. He was also a great distraction for me to not think about Kevin. Yes, I missed him, but it didn't come to me that he missed me as well. Mr. Spencer was a fun guy. He was also smart, and he taught me a lot about businesses that I didn't know. That was how we became close. He was like an uncle that I had never had. Little did I know that the big jackal had actually an agenda to get me. Time passed, and I had become a regular at Mr. Spencer's home. His wife, Kevin's mom, knew that I was helping Mr. Spencer with his business books, but she didn't notice the way we had become close. Mr. Spencer had become what I call a mentor or a guardian I had never had. He was teaching me a lot about businesses, which made me have thoughts of starting my own business eventually. I once told him that, and he said he was going to give me the capital to start whatever business I wanted to start. Well, that was an appetizing offer, but I couldn't accept it. On the other hand, Kevin came once to see his mother, but we didn't talk. It was like we were total strangers, and that broke my heart because I had thought we were on good terms. I tried asking him on social media. He never responded to any of my texts or calls. I wondered what had happened or what had he heard about that would make him act weird and cold towards me. My heart would always shut whenever I think about it, and it did hurt me a lot to be in the dark about what was eating him. Was I in love with the guy? Months passed. I got tired of waiting and crying over Kevin. I mean, it was not like we were dating or something. So as hard as it was to forget about him, I tried. The guy had ghosted since I don't know when. Even the heart that loves also gets tired, right? What infuriated me the most was that he made me believe that I would somehow be his girlfriend, or we would be as close and tight as we were till eternity. But I had thought wrong. Instead, I got hurt and waited on something that was just a dream to me. During those months, Mr. Spencer became not only my mentor, but also my best friend. He gave me the attention that even my own father didn't give me. He became my motivator and the best guardian. Mom tried warning me about being close with Mr. Spencer the way we were close, but I didn't listen. My mother would even ask what had happened between Kevin and I would not give her any answers because I also didn't know what had happened between Kevin and I. Mr. Spencer once invited me to one of his business trips because his wife was not feeling well to travel. So, as his tax manager, yes, I eventually took his job offer, he asked me to go with him. When I told my parents about that, there was a huge argument between Mom and Dad. My father thought it was a great opportunity for me to learn more about business, and that Mr. Spencer had been a good mentor, while my mother was against everything. My mother said Mr. Spencer was up to something, and if I was not careful, I would become like one of his past victims. Only if I had listened to my mother, sick. So Mr. Spencer and I went to the United Arab Emirate, UAE, for the business trip. I fell in so much love with the country. It was so beautiful. I even wished to move to it one day with Kevin, of course. Mr. Spencer booked us separate rooms, which I appreciated a lot. Later on, he asked me to wear it nicely. I was going to be his date at some business gala dinner. The man just did the unthinkable and gave me money to purchase a dress. As much as I was not comfortable with the way he was looking at me, I loved the dress I had chosen. After the gala dinner, we went to our separate rooms. My heart and soul longed for Kevin, but he wasn't there. I tried calling him with an international number. He answered, but when he heard it was me, he dropped the call, so can you imagine how heartbroken I was when he did that? As I had finished taking a shower, Mr. Spencer knocked into my room and asked me to help him with something urgently. Mind you, that time I was only in my hotel gown, so I went to open the door to let him in. He stared at me like he was looking at something he liked or loved. It really made me uncomfortable and felt like I was not dressed. I asked what he wanted me to help him with. He didn't answer me. Instead, he just complimented me and my body. That somehow made me feel beautiful because no guy had ever complimented me or my body, not even my ex-boyfriend. Well, my ex-boyfriend was a womanizer, so he never cared about how my body looked, but instead, he would always find a way to make me doubt myself. Almost my whole life, I had been body shamed. You know, always being told and reminded how imperfect your body shape is and how bad I looked. So hearing someone or having someone compliment me and my body always does something to me. It raises my self-esteem a little. But on another thought, I would doubt someone who compliments my body would say it genuinely and mean it. I mean, because my ex-boyfriend would compliment me whenever he wanted some intimacy. Then I would think he meant it. But things change whenever we get into an argument, or I find out that he was cheating. He would remind me how bad-looking I was and how my body was badly shaped compared to the girls that he was cheating on me with. But The way Mr. Spencer was looking at me made me think that he meant it, and he had been complimenting me since we went to the gala dinner that he had asked me to accompany him to. The way his stares were intense, they made me uncomfortable, so I excused myself. So I would go to the bathroom and change to proper clothes, because I wouldn't, and I couldn't change in front of him since the hotel room has only one bedroom with an ensuite. When I got into an ensuite, I was able to breathe since I was holding my breath and felt goosebumps over my body. I didn't know why I felt like that, but I did. I took them as my mentor and my father's friend. Was I falling for him? But nah, I wasn't. After I'd changed, I joined him in the room. We started working, going through what he wanted us to go through, but I felt his eyes stinging on my body. So I tried to distract him and get him to shift his focus. I asked if he had eaten so we could order. Instead of answering my question, he started touching my cheeks and brushing them. My heart was beating so fast to a point that I didn't even know how to react and what to do, so I just went mute. He started complimenting me again, telling me some sweet words. My mind just froze. I didn't even think of the circumstances that would come if his wife was to find out what her husband was doing. I felt butterflies on my stomach when he kissed me. To tell the truth, I don't remember and know what happened after, but I found myself kissing him back but backed out after. I had realized that I had made a huge mistake. I had a huge love crush on his stepson, and I was still heartbroken by the fact that he had ghosted me for no valid reason. Wasn't that being a coward? The stepdad kissed me again, and that time it went too far because I was also feeling the heat. I had never gotten a kiss or been intimate with a male person after my ex-boyfriend, who I broke up with 2 years ago. So imagine the drought and hunger for sexual engagement I had. It was bad. The kiss got intense to a point that no one was thinking about anything but was in the moment, and we made love. To tell the truth, I didn't regret any moment that I had with Mr. Spencer. Why would you feel guilty for something you both did, and you both were adults? Plus, I was single and sexually frustrated, so he helped me remember that I was still alive and I was still a woman, even though he was a married man, but I cared less. One thing that I had regretted was that we were careless and too caught up in the moment, to a point that we even forgot to use a protection. I didn't know if the guy had a sickness or what, meaning I risked getting sick and pregnant just to get in the moment. I was a fool, right? Months later, the thing that had started in the hotel room in the United Arab Emirate, UAE, between Mr. Spencer and I kept going on until we went back home. I won't lie and say I didn't enjoy every moment of it, but I did. Yes, what we did was wrong in every way, but I had a good time. Actually, I had the most splendid time of my life. We destroyed a lot of relationships, and I would always feel so bad about it. During those months, Mr. Spencer and I continued seeing each other secretly, regardless of the outcome of it. So one cold summer day, Mr. Spencer had invited me to his house. His wife was in the hospital because she had not been feeling too well, and that led her to the hospital. So as I was chilling and cuddling with Mr. Spencer, we heard the door open, but we ignored it thinking it was the house helper. She knew what was happening between Mr. Spencer and I. To my surprise, it was not the helper, but Kevin himself. I didn't know how to react, really, but his facial expression was full of anger and disappointment, I think. He didn't say anything. Instead, he asked to speak to me on the side. I didn't know what he wanted to speak about, and I didn't care because I had blocked and deleted his number. He had ghosted me for way too long. Yes, I still had those feelings for him, but I got tired of waiting for the train that was not going anywhere or making any progress. When we spoke on the side, he asked what I was doing with his stepdad and why I didn't respect his mother's marriage and house. We argued until he got pretty angry, and I accidentally got a slap from him. I couldn't believe it, I thought I was dreaming. The guy I had feelings for slapped me, though it was accidentally, but he did it in the end. After he slapped me, he furiously went to his stepdad and started attacking him. It was a real mess, I tell you. After some time, Kevin left and told us that he would destroy us. What hurt me the most was when he started crying and told me that he was actually looking forward to making me his girlfriend, but he didn't know how to express it without me feeling some type of way or rejecting him. No lies, that made me feel really bad, because I had thought he just ghosted me for months. Then when he found me with his stepdad, he confessed his feelings for me. It didn't make any sense, and it still doesn't. A few days later, I got a text from Kevin asking me to meet up with him. I was a bit skeptical because I didn't know what he wanted to say or do, so I took my little sister with me and went to Aurora Park just in case he was still angry and would want to slap me again. I knew I would have my loud sister, so he couldn't do anything bad in front of a child. So when we got there, well, we already found him there. He was no longer angry as he was when he saw me at Mr. Spencer's house. So we talked, and he told me the reason why he ghosted me. He also confessed his feelings for me. I also told him how I felt, but there was only one problem. I had fallen for Mr. Spencer, and it was really hard for me to decide who I wanted to be with. I mean, I liked Mr. Spencer for his tender attention and care, and I loved Kevin in another way. Was I being a hypocrite and an ungrateful bastard? Weeks later, I heard that Mrs. Spencer, Kevin's mother, found out about the affair that I had with her husband, and she didn't take it too well. Mind you, she was going in and out of hospitals because she had a heart problem, so when she heard about the affair, she got a heart attack and passed on. It was really an emotional and sad period for Kevin and Mr. Spencer. Worst part, Kevin blamed me for his mother's passing, and he had all the right to. I blamed myself for everything that was happening at Kevin's house. I mean, his siblings had lost the only parent they had. A lot changed. My parents also found out about what was happening between Kevin's stepdad and I. My relationship with my parents changed for the worst. My mother kept reminding me how careless I was, and that she had warned me about Mr. Spencer. It was really bad. On the other hand, my father was really disappointed at me, and there was nothing I could have done to make things right because Kevin had lost his mother because of my selfishness and hunger for sexual interaction. Things went south for me to a point that I found myself in between everything. I didn't know if I was going in or going out, if the sun was rising or setting. It was a mess. Yes, I was also part of the facade that had taken Kevin's mother's life, but Mr. Spencer was also part of it, but my parents didn't see that. Instead, I was the only one in the wrong. I once received long text messages from one of Kevin's sisters telling me how much I had disappointed Kevin. I knew I had disappointed Kevin to the core, and it was really eating me up because he once had told me, or must I say, he jokingly told me that he was seeing a future with me. But I took that as a joke. I mean, we were friends. Yes, we would act like lovers whenever we were together. But that was it. Not knowing or noticing that he was confessing his feelings, or that he saw me as his future lover. I didn't know, okay, or must I say I didn't pay any attention to his hints, so I did the dumbest thing I had ever done in my whole life. Months passed. I tried speaking to Kevin to apologize to him, but I couldn't reach out to him. I mean, he had gone back to Jersey City full-time since his mother was no more so. He didn't have any reason to visit Aurora anymore. It was really hard for me because my father had told me to stop working for Mr. Spencer and go back to my old job, of which I didn't want to do because despite what had happened between Mr. Spencer and I, he was paying me well for my service. And that added fuel in an already blazing fire. During those months when I was at home, bored, so I decided to check my social media because it had been a long time since I had checked my socials to see what was trending and going on in the world. The first thing I saw were pictures of me and Mr. Spencer. Someone had posted them and wrote a lot of bad things about me. I suspected Kevin because he was the only person who was pretty much angry at me and his stepdad. People were dragging my name to the mud to a point that I found myself in a very depressing stage. I wanted to just go away to an unknown continent where no one would know me. The way my name was dragged, it was like I was the only one on the wrong. They were not calling Mr. Spencer by names, but I was called names. I was called a homewrecker and a murderer because Kevin's mother had lost her life because of the affair that had happened. I was furious, angry, and hurt because whoever did that really ruined my life and my reputation. Days later, I decided to take my savings and use them to find out who had linked the pictures of me and Mr. Spencer, only to find out that Mr. Spencer's house had cameras. The whole house had cameras, including the bedrooms, so the pictures were linked by the helper with Kevin's sister's help. My name was tarnished to a point that if I were to try and pick myself up, it would be hard. About a week later, my father told me that Mr. Spencer had been arrested because he was running an illegal business, while he took the one I was helping him with as a front. But I was also caught up in that crossfire because I was helping him with his business books, so I was asked to testify against him, or I would also get arrested for helping a criminal like him. I mean, I didn't know he was a criminal or was running an illegal business. All I did was help him balance his business's spreadsheets and tax payments. Was I wrong for doing that? As I was going through that hard, depressing phase of my life, I decided to ask for forgiveness from my parents and made a video of myself apologizing to Mrs. Spencer's children for what I did. I knew everything had consequences, but I never thought it would have come to that point, so I had to fix myself and try claiming back my life. After I had made the apology video, I sent it to Kevin's sister. I had her number when she texted me a long text swearing at me. I was feeling guilty. I should have listened to my mother, but I got selfish and ruined someone else's home. Worst part was that my suspicions about Mr. Spencer became true because I had suspected that he was doing something, but I ignored all that and fell in the trap of his bed with him. I tried calling Kevin after some time, with the hope that he would at least answer my call so I would apologize. Luckily, he did answer, but he didn't have my number anymore, so I had to start by explaining myself to him. So we talked and asked him to meet up with me so I would be able to show him how much I regretted everything that had happened between us. If I didn't give up on how I felt for him, and if I didn't fall for Mr. Spencer's tricks and traps, maybe, just maybe, I would be living my happily ever after with Kevin. I allowed the old man to manipulate me, and I was too naive, I know, and I lost a precious and perfect man just because I was weak and the stepdad was there to satisfy or give me the satisfaction that I had never had. Yes, my ex was giving me intimacy, but it was never to satisfy me but himself. After a week, Kevin and I met, and we managed to have a civilized talk. I told him about my past and how it made me weak to hear someone compliment me. Not that he never complimented me like telling me I was beautiful, but he had never complimented the whole me. I don't know if you get what I am trying to say. I had disappointed Kevin in the worst way possible. He forgave me, but he told me that he wanted nothing to do with me. The damage I had done was way beyond repairs because it was never going to bring his mother back. It really made me feel so bad, and I regret every action I did. It didn't only take Kevin's mother, but it also distanced my family. And I lost my future lover. Just like that for just one silly mistake. Please give me tips on how I should have avoided this and how will I overcome this. I am stuck and I need help on how to deal with the guilt and regret.